Hello and welcome to WriterSpeak, a program dedicated to the written word and those who produce it. I'm your host, Mikala Kennan, and with me today in studio is Dr. Dianna Grayer. She is the author of a number of children's books. She and her partner are also hosts of Living Proof, which airs on KRCB Radio FM every Sunday evening. She is a professor and on the faculty of Meridian University. I know she's an avid basketball player. She's a great role model, a mom. She's a fun person to be around. And Dianna, we're happy to have you with us today on WriterSpeak.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Oh, well, welcome. One of the things I saw in looking at your website was a quote that you say, "I write these books because they are the books I wish I had access to when I was a child." So what do your books offer to the young reader?
Well, I mean, if we can go to that quote, my childhood was not so wonderful, and a lot of kids' childhoods are not so wonderful because as a marriage family therapist, I get to hear stories daily. And so the books that I wanted to read about was to explain to me what was going on in my family, the chaos that was going on. My mom, my dad, they didn't talk about those things. And so as a therapist, I get to hear stories from my own clients about what is going on in their family. So I decided to do this journey of writing books where kids can have information. They can know what's going on in the family. They can understand the chaos, you know, and the lack of relationship or the lack of being seen in their families.
Absolutely. And just a couple of the titles: Dianna's Unveiling, A Girl, a Teacher, a Turtle, and an Eagle, I Am Somebody, I Am a Lot of Things, a number of others in there as well, but all having to do with building self-confidence, self-esteem, knowing what is a healthy relationship.
It's so valuable to, like for instance, the lone bird. If you mind me grabbing the lone bird here, the lone bird is a wonderful story about a bird that had a choice to follow negativity or not follow negativity. And the lone bird was sad and alone because these three mean birds were really mean. And so the lone bird was like, what's going on here? I'm kind and I'm just trying to catch up with them and I can't. And so what happens is, just like kids, they come to a place and they have to decide if they're going to follow negativity or follow something positive. And so this book is a journey how the lone bird made that decision, and in making that decision was able to meet kind, friendly birds like herself. And that's the kind of messages that I try and put out for these kids, as well as for the teachers and the parents and the grandparents and the adults that are reading the story. Because I use this book for my adult clients as well, because it's a lesson, it's a message.
Yes. And I would say that a lot of us who are now in the role of parents and older adults never had the opportunity either to read these kinds of things or be affirmed in our feelings. We've all come from families where things happened and we didn't understand and no one helped us to understand those.
Exactly. And the I Am Somebody book is all about that. That parallels my own childhood and the chaos that I was living in. And I always wanted to understand what was going on. Was it about me? You know, why wasn't I getting the nurturance or the attention that I wanted? And so Layla in this story is this little girl who really wants that connection. She wants information. So she prays every night, God, please send me somebody to see me. Right? And eventually, she has to go on an errand for her mother, and she meets the neighborhood school bully. And she sits on the curb and cries after he takes her money. And in sitting there sobbing, this wise woman, Mama Ayas, comes to rescue her and puts an arm around her and touches her and nurtures her in a way that she's never experienced before. And so that's where the story begins, that relationship and building that relationship. And she's so pleased with God because God sent her this woman. So she's learning, she's asking questions, all the questions that she wanted to ask in her family. Had no, you know, too afraid to do that. And she was able to ask the questions.
And that parallels your experience.
Yes, yes. It parallels in the way that I wanted that for myself, and so I just kind of created it in my own imagination to make it happen, which is a way of using imagination to feed the soul.
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of your books contain either worksheets or questions for discussion at the very end. Talk about those as really valuable communication tools.
It's so, so valuable. I have a story to tell you about a family who bought my books, and she took a couple books, but she really talked about the lone bird. And she had a 6-year-old son. They went on vacation, so they're in the hotel room, and they had time to calm down and relax, and so they were reading the books. And she was so amazed because they asked the questions in the back of the book. She was so amazed that her son, 6-year-old, she said, he knew all those answers. He shared stuff with me I've never heard before.
Wow.
This is the piece about the questions. I can't see any other way but doing this, adding this part. It's very rich. I go through the book and I think about what questions would benefit the kids and the parents and the teachers. So there's a lot of disclosure that happens. But parents don't ask these questions. You know, in day-to-day living, they don't ask these questions. And so that's why this mom was so surprised to hear her son share so deeply about bullying and being afraid and what he desires and likes. You know, so this is why it's so important.
And not to focus exclusively on that, but today, with so much talk about bullying and the meanness that the kids are experiencing between each other.
And starting very young.
Yeah.
At 3 years old. Yes, in preschool. Yes, it's happening. I mean, you know, look at media, look at what they see on TV, and look at the video games. I went to a party recently, and there was a 10-year-old just watching, you know, just a lot of that is happening. And so, matter of fact, I have 3 bully books that I'm working on, so hopefully they will be coming out soon to talk specifically about bullying and how to help kids be empowered in a different way. Sure.
How do you come up with a theme or the content for each book you write?
It's amazing how it happens for me. It's like one of those things that they show up. Like the lone bird. I was just laying in bed, waking up one morning, and I was looking outside. Beautiful blue sky with white puffy clouds. And I'm just staring out, just waking up. And I look, and there are these 3 blackbirds just really frantically moving across the sky. And I just watch them. Then all of a sudden, behind the same cluster of clouds, there's a lone blackbird. I say, there's a story in this. So I got my computer and I started writing this story because this lone bird was really working hard to catch these other 3 birds, but they didn't want any part of it. And so that's how that story came about. I am a lot of things. It came about because I know what kids are going through. You know, they need some inspiration, they need some empowerment, they need to feel good about themselves. So to have them say, I am smart, I am responsible, I am courageous, that affirmation helps them grow, and I know that they need that. It was a tool, and that's how that book came about.
What do you think draws kids to books? In this era now of computers and iPads and electronic communication, I'm hoping that there are children out there that still love the feel of a book in their hand.
They do, yeah. Some really do. But then there's a lot of parents are putting kids on Kindles now, you know. And part of that is sad because, but a lot of the kids love the illustrations. Sierra had a lot of following because she's in school and they were happy that she was able to create. But I think the images really helps a lot. You know, the illustrations help a lot. And honestly, the parents and the teachers, if they push the books, I think kids will be more attracted to them. Like going on vacation, instead of having a computer game, the parent had the books and they read the books. And so I think it's a lot of, you know, adults having to influence, you know, a lot of influence from adults will help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about your own creative process. What inspires you? Maybe something so simple as looking out the window and seeing birds.
Yeah, I'm all about, you know, this is my soul, my heart just wants to speak and help. This is my service work in a way. I want to give tools, I want to teach people how to be in relationship. I mean, as a therapist, that's what I do. Marriage family therapist is helping in that creation. So if a theme comes to me, it shows up like, but I gotta have a title. So if something stirred up in me, I kind of look around for a certain title for it. And once I get the title of it, then I can move through the book. But usually my books are about relationships. It's really about that. That is so key because I see it so much in my practice where people struggle with it. They struggle with it and they have a hard time coming forth with being fierce, you know, being strong in their lives, you know, being empowered and saying what's okay and what's not okay. And a lot of kids and adults put on disguises, you know, like Wisdom from the Wild is what's really behind the growl is that type of book where this eagle and bear has they just have a dialogue along the riverbed. And this bear is growling, "Ow," you know, trying to move all the animals out of the way, big bad bear. But the eagle is saying, what's going on here? You got something in your throat? You want to clear your throat? And because the eagle was not afraid of the bear, but in the process, the bear is learning about the importance of being oneself. If you're not being yourself, you growl and you're mean, you know, people don't want to be around you. You know, they leave the scene or whatever. But it's a teaching type of book. Most of my books are that way, giving good messages in it.
And I can see where the adults would benefit by those as well, because many of us were not given those opportunities to fill out a worksheet saying, what do you really feel about that? Or
yes, exactly.
And I'm sure you run across this in some of your workshops as well.
Right, right. Oh yeah, it's those negative voices, and that's why I am a lot of things so important about affirmations, positive affirmation. I am okay. I do have a voice. So yeah, and that's what I do in my Stepping into Fierceness workshops, is about helping people be empowered and to be fierce and not let the negative voices take over. And so it shows in my books. It's like there's another way to be in relationship. You just have to have some tools. And these are tools. And I think kids need tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you feel when you were young and having these questions yourself that you would end up being in the role you are today as a teacher and helping others to explore these same issues and concerns?
I like that because that question is because when I was a little girl, I looked at my situation and I knew it was not the right one. I just know that these people did not know how to do this relationship dance. That's what I call it in my practice. They just didn't know how to do it. And I was not brave enough to talk about it because I was young, right? Kids are young.
Sure.
But I realized, yeah, eventually that I would have to show or tell the story about how it was and how it needed to be and what works and what doesn't work. And so this is, yeah, what I'm doing, telling the story,
and
teaching.
Did you have a large family?
Yeah,
siblings?
it was 5 kids and 2 parents. It's a big household. And I was the 4th child. And so, yeah, you know, there are some fun times, but, you know, as far as communication and talking about feelings, and it just wasn't there. Yeah. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Now, you've also done some foster parenting.
Yeah.
And you still do, correct?
Cher and I, we've had 26 foster kids.
Wow.
And we're in the process of wanting to adopt now. So we're looking at that process. before we get too old.
Excellent. Well, they'll keep you young as well.
Yeah, I'm very energized. I just love it.
That's great.
Yeah, I love
and
it.
I'm sure you've been very, very influential in just having the relationships with the kids you have had.
Yeah, I would
introducing these principles and...
Oh, exactly. They got to live every day with these things. Yeah. Yeah, the kids, it was a wonderful experience with them. They taught us a lot, and for sure I taught them a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 So what do you think is some of the most important need of young kids today? Is it self-esteem? Because, and I say that because we went through this era of Sesame Street and lots of PBS type programs that really do give kids a voice and help them to have an opinion about things. You know, we've got news programs for kids that weren't there before many, many years ago. So the media is an asset and an ally in spreading some of this message. But what do you see as some of the greatest needs that the young kids have today?
Well, again, I mean, based on what I see in my practice and what I hear about with adults who have kids, it's that they don't know, really, self-esteem is really still key, you know, for them to go out into the world and be, you know, feel good about themselves. It's so important for them to feel good about themselves. And how do they get that? They get that from their parents, you know, from modeling, from being mirrored, how special you are. You know, if I look at you, Mikala, and say how wonderful you are today, and, you know, I love you, and all of those things, a lot of kids don't get that because parents are working full-time or 2 or 3 jobs. A lot of parents are working a lot. They don't have time with their kids. Or they just don't even know how. I have clients I'm working with, they just don't know how to be with their children or how to talk about these things. I say talk to them about it. They know what's going on. They can see you two fighting all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's really important to continue the relationship building their self-esteem. And I would like to just go to schools and just talk about all of these issues. But you know, some schools not interested in these types of books because they're really you know, giving messages. It's sort of like a preaching kind of thing, but it's not really a preaching thing. It's just an offering. I see it as an offering of information that's needed, and an offering to help them connect better with their kids. So if the parents are reading this, they're getting more knowledge about what's going on with their children.
Right.
They, you know, they get the knowledge from the books, but they get to get information from their children. And how could that not deepen the relationship?
It seems common sense.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not, I'm sure.
It's not. You would be amazed. And I'm privy to a lot of information behind closed doors, so it needs more of this. So I have tons of more books that I'm trying to get out into the public because of these issues.
What's the difference in writing for children versus maybe taking the same content and intend it for adults?
That's a good question. Probably more extensive vocabulary, maybe.
Probably.
But yeah.
Although I don't know.
But the message is the same, you know, and if they can get it on this level. But how do you market kids' books to adults? You know, how do you do that? But yeah, you would have to fancy it up a little bit, maybe. Because I don't think an adult would go and buy this book for him or herself.
You could maybe say 50 Shades of Growl or something. That might at least
exactly
catch their attention.
I don't know how to do that because people ask me why I write children's books, and it comes from that wounded child place in my own self of wanting this information and didn't have an opportunity to have that and even have those conversations that I wish I had. You know?
So it becomes a lifelong healing process for you.
Totally.
As well. You know, we teach what we need to know ourselves.
Exactly. And that's what's showing up, and which is beneficial for so many.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is foundation work.
Yes.
These books, what I'm talking about is foundation work of building character, building self-esteem, just building who the person is, who this child is becoming. You know, if they can get this information now, I think elementary school, junior high, you know, things would be better for them if they can understand these dynamics now.
I can see where our educational system would get a little antsy about or cautious about introducing some of this, because it could be interpreted a number of different ways, no matter how genuine your heart intention is, that it would in fact maybe be borderline and you know, get some parents excited about things they shouldn't be necessarily.
I Am Somebody definitely would be that type of book. Dianna's Unveiling would not. It's a journey for kids. It's a transformational story. But this I Am Somebody is a really deep a journey of understanding chaos. I think kids need to have some outlet. They need to know something. If they know this, then they can have they get better. They're more equipped to deal with relationships, and maybe if they knew this stuff, they won't go toward the negative as much. You see what I'm saying? So I always see the positive in the messages. You know,
you're also building a really foundational maturity and the ability maybe to discern between aggression versus assertion. Two very, very different things, but probably easily confused with video games and the amount of violence people see. You know, I become concerned about the young people, the Generation Y kids, these young men in their 20s who flip and end up in very sad situations. And
yeah, it's starting younger. It's really starting younger, and it's, you know, it's a sad situation. It really is. You know, it pains me sometimes, you know, because of what I see and what I hear. You know, I hear stories about kids who are, you know, being hurt and being abused, and so if they had some story to say, like, you're okay, you know, it's not your fault, you know, something's not working in your family, but hang in there, you know, it's something, you know what I'm saying? But if you don't get any of that and you have this stuff happening, it's happening. The reality is, it's happening. The children just walking by you that you pass in the shopping center, things are happening to them. That's a reality, you know?
And I'd imagine on a day-to-day basis, they don't get a lot of opportunity or encouragement to process that.
No.
It becomes their reality.
Exactly. And what I do, Mikala, a lot in my practice is teach parents how to have family meetings where they do have this opportunity. You know, we did this a lot with our kids as parents. To have a family meeting once a month, make an appointment with each other. Once a month, put it on the calendar and have a meeting. And you talk about issues, you talk about concerns, you know. And then at the end of the family meeting, I always encourage appreciations.
Wow.
You know, that was really a task for my kids to come up with appreciations. It's a practice that you have to learn to do as well, you know, just to find something nice to say or kind to say to someone.
Yeah, a discipline almost.
Yeah, totally. And so it's a beautiful process if more people would do family meetings in their families.
Well, how can we find these books and where can we get them for ourselves?
Well, they're on Create Space website and they're on my website, www.dr Dianna with 2 N's, Grayer, GRAYER.com.
I'm Mikala Kennan. Thank you for joining us on WriterSpeak, and we'll see you next time.